goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine. Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Condon, and my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Der Film Genannt Pink Rabbit is sehr gut.
I don't know what that is.
The movie named Pink Rabbit is very good.
Hey, look at that! You're doing some German, and it goes to show you how long ago it was when I took German class. I was always a Spanish class person.
I'm a cunning linguist. What can I say?
When do you ever get to say that? Like, when do you ever get to put those words together? And it always sounds dirty, like just always. But yeah, we're on episode 245 this week, and we've got a very, very special film that we're reviewing today. So every once in a while we get these, and it's always kind of hard for us. Every once in a while we'll get films that filmmakers send to us, and when we get it, it kind of, I don't know about you, John, but it leaves me like with trepidation when we have to review them.
I will say that speaking from a person who makes independent films, and they always are, because I don't have a big Hollywood budget, like, are always riddled with errors and mistakes and things I wish I could correct or adjust or change, or is that, it's hard because I've been there to like do critiques of these kind of things, but I will always say, no matter the film, I will always give anybody a standing ovation for completing a film, because it's one of the hardest damn things in the world to do. It
absolutely is. But it always leaves me with trepidation because, like, I know what type of episodes we create. and like, I don't want to trash a film. But I also want to be honest. And so when someone says, hey, please review my movie, I'm always just like, listen, I'm going to be honest. Just know that. Take the good with the bad. I will not destroy your movie because your name's not Neil Breen. And because let's be honest here, that's the only person, like, I won't even trash Tommy Wiseau. Like, I won't even destroy him because he brings joy.
Yeah.
Okay? He brings joy. Neil Breen brings no joy. None whatsoever. Okay. Watching his movies is like getting a dental work done without any Novocaine. That's literally the equivalency of doing that. And I only say that because I recently had 4 cavities filled, and like the Novocaine wasn't working at one point. So that's what it feels like.
Oh,
but yeah. That was a fun thing. But this movie was sent to us by a female filmmaker. And I'm gonna butcher this name, and I'm so sorry, but like, I'm sorry. English last name Coddington. It's gonna be hard to pronounce this, but the filmmaker's name is Zetkin Yikilmis, and she's from Germany.
Oh, Herr Coddington, niche is sehr gut.
Okay, thank you. But she sent
Your Deutsch is nicht sehr gut.
My Deutsch is nicht sehr gut. I was gonna say our one German fan, Ava Haberman, she probably would be able to knock this name out really well. But the point is that Zetkin had sent us this film called Pink Rabbit, and it's getting released literally as this episode goes out. So I believe its release date is on the 13th of September, and this will be going out, well, like at the time you're hearing this, will probably either be the day before or on the day it goes out. But it's been picked up for distribution by Gravitas Ventures, which is fantastic. It's a very large indie label to get picked up. And the movie, again, Pink Rabbit, is what Zetkin refers to as her attempt at trash cinema and trash horror, which I'm like, it's interesting that she uses those words because I don't think this is trash in the least. Like I've seen trash movies, and this isn't trash.
I think in the sense that it's like a B movie that like and to be clear, because sometimes B movies can get lumped in with like Neil Breen and Tommy Wiseau, and those are like F movies. Like a B movie is like one that maybe enters like exploitation levels or has a niche or a genre, like purposely in movies that appeal to a specific audience. So I think that might be what they mean.
Yeah, but I kind of felt that this was more in line with movies like Evil Dead, for instance, especially Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. It's had very much kind of like a hero's journey vibe that kind of gets transported into this bizarro world of stuff. And but again, like I didn't think that it rose to the level of like a movie like Basket Case, for instance, which I would consider Basket Case and pretty much a lot of the Frank Henenlotter films as like trash cinema. Good trash. It's like, fast food. But that's kind of what I kind of attribute as like trash cinema.
Yeah. I think trash, like, I don't know, that might even be kind of a defense mechanism, where it's like, I'm going to push my movie in a more negative light so that I'm going to be told, no, it's not that,
Okay. I don't know if I see that case, but anyway, this movie is called Pink Rabbit, and it's a very bizarre movie. It's very bizarre. It's the story of a woman named Martha who is played by our director, which again, Zetkin had told me that this film was made on a budget of $4,000. Her husband served as a cinematographer and sound person, and herself, she was the lead actor as well as the director, editor, colorist, and in charge of costumes and makeup, which is insane.
Yeah,
which is insane.
It's also kind of insane to me that this movie was made on $4,000. Like, I don't know if I believe that, and this might be like almost an accidental compliment. Like, the movie had to cost more than that. Like, for anybody that believes Robert Rodriguez that El Mariachi cost $7,000, I have a bridge in Alaska to sell you.
Well, but I think it is. Like, think about it this way: like, if you already have camera gear, right? Like, let's say that John, I'll use you for instance. So, like, you do freelance work, you already have that gear. That is one thing that you're not necessarily going to factor into a budget of a film because you've already got it. So I don't know if Zetkin's husband already had this gear on hand. And then it really was just a matter of paying for set decoration and the locations and paying your people. But that, as she said, the crew was light on this thing. So maybe that $4,000 was stretched enough.
Maybe, yeah.
So I'll take her at her word. But I mean, in watching this movie, I was pleasantly surprised to see that at least for $4,000, you got your money's worth. It's a competent story. Yeah. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end, and it does follow the tropes of, I would say, kind of almost bizarre and surreal subgenres of horror.
Do you know how I would describe this movie? Like, I would say this is if David Lynch made Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah, it does have a bit of Lynch vibe to it, doesn't it? Yeah, it definitely does. Especially like there's one scene in this, and I don't want to give away the whole movie, but I do want to mention this. Like, there's a scene where Martha has a conversation with a like tarot card reader, and it's basically Martha, like it's like they're talking to each other. Like the actor is playing, Zetkin's playing both characters, and that's a Lynch vibe there. Like that's something he would do.
Yeah, this is what I want to do. I want you to play the same character.
Right.
Well, with somebody else in the script, David, this is my most spiritual movie yet. It's like, what does that mean? Just do it.
Yeah. So without getting too much into the weeds on the film, okay, the film opens up with Martha. She works for a lawyer named Mr. Brown. And basically what we get is that Martha kind of is very obsessed with her job and doesn't really have a lot of time to spend with her husband and her kid. And so the movie begins out with basically Martha traveling back to see her kid. And over the course of traveling back to see her family, she gets transported to this bizarre world of the Pink Rabbit. And
Do we ever get an explanation why?
Not really.
Because I thought this was going to be like a morality play. Like, you know how Hook, that the Robin Williams, Steven Spielberg movie, is really just kind of a commentary on like forgetting, like, you know, your innocence, forgetting what's important, forgetting like what's valuable in life. Like, it wasn't that she was working too hard because she wanted to. She was being forced to.
Was she being forced to work too hard for the lawyer?
Well, yeah, the guy was like, you ain't going anywhere. We need to, like, you know, get this Johnson file or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You know, but like that was kind of set up in the beginning where it's kind of like she wants to go home and wants to be with her kid, but she can't escape work. So it's not like Robin Williams and Hook, who was like, oh, I'm just so married to being a lawyer.
Well, you can kind of make the argument that at least in one of the scenes where it's a pivotal scene involving Martha and her child. Again, I don't want to give the whole movie away, but that something occurs that is kind of in line with that morality play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that maybe it's almost like what she's going through with the Pink Rabbit is almost penance for that particular incident. Again, I'm trying to play like very careful, not to give away the movie, because I wouldn't want someone to give away the whole movie on a review that I send to somebody. So, but I kind of viewed it as almost like it was kind of reminding me a bit of the movie. What the fuck was it? It was a Hellraiser movie. What the shit was it called? I'm gonna look this up. But one of the Hellraiser films, and it was one of the terrible ones. Basically was, you know, dealing with Pinhead and dealing with the Cenobites and dealing with the hell because of horrible shit that the person had done in their life. And it was all like coming back to haunt them. And then they had to relive that over and over again. Okay. I'm going to forget the name of the damn movie, but yeah, it was Hellraiser Inferno. Oh man. Yeah. Hellraiser Inferno. It was from 2000.
There's a sign of quality right there.
Oh yeah.
It's called Inferno.
Oh yeah. But it stars Craig Schaeffer, the guy from Nightbreed. It actually, funny enough, directed by Scott Derrickson, the same guy who I think he did Doctor Strange and Black Phone and Sinister. So he's done a lot of horror, but yeah, he did Hellraiser Inferno, which this was one of the first ones where it was like New Dimension had the rights to Hellraiser and they didn't want to like create a real movie. So they took a script that had nothing to do with Hellraiser and slapped Pinhead and the Cenobites in the box into it. They did this for about like 4 or 5 different movies. But yeah, the plot of this is it kind of reminds me a bit of the plot of Pink Rabbit, in that Martha is kind of having to deal with these weird things that happen within this world. And the Pink Rabbit is kind of like the guide to the weirdness happening in this world. And then the ending of this does kind of make you think that this is kind of basically like, penance for something that occurred in the movie. Similar to Hellraiser Inferno.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think she deserves that. Like, her character is a victim this whole movie. It's not a morality play to me, in a sense that, like, there's no morality for her to learn. She does want to be a great mom, and she does want to be a great family person and be there for her family. She's just like most Americans, is just overworked and overwrought.
Right.
So
I didn't see it necessarily as a morality play. I saw it more or less as like really dealing with, two sides of a person who deals with tragedy, more or less. Because you get the idea, at least there's a scene in the film where, because in essence what the Pink Rabbit requires that Martha does is that she has to face off with these weirdos in this film. And the Pink Rabbit gives her 3 rules. And one of those rules is that she has to kill the people that she is kind of trapped in a level. It almost feels very much like a video game. And
it's very much played that way.
It's played that way. And I think that's a really interesting way of showing that off. Like, you literally have confetti dropping down after Martha kills one of these people that she's trapped in this world with. And, the Pink Rabbit kind of is the liaison between the two, between the different worlds. And at one point in the movie, you have her sitting down with a detective, and we're led to believe that this is now reality, that we're not in the bizarre world of the Pink Rabbit. And, the detective literally says, like, yeah, you actually killed these people. And for me, that made me think, like, it made me question whether or not Martha's insane.
Which, like, I preferred. I love that. And I don't want to give too much away either, but, like, the movie takes another turn. I'll just say that abstractly. And I'm like, you had an opportunity here. But yeah. But at the same time, like, I think it would have been too predictable to go down that road. You know what I mean? Like, how many movies have you seen where that same sort of thing does happen? And it ends up being like, well, the person was insane. See, it was all in their head. It's kind of predictable. So I think what Zetkin is playing with is really the tropes of these different types of movies. And that's what I think Pink Rabbit really is kind of a celebration of these different tropes from these movies, kind of all combined into a story that I think could be refined more from an editing standpoint. I'm going to get to kind of some of the things I think that could be worked on. But I know for me, I appreciated that it was not just one dimensional. Like, you could tell that there was an attempt to really put subtext into this movie, and that's commendable, especially with the tiny budget, like $4,000. Yeah, I will say this about the movie, that I think that part of my opinion about it was a bit undeservingly painted by the fact that the version that we had was dubbed, and I would have preferred to see, like, the German version with subtitles, because I think some of the dubbing voice actors they got, like,
here's
did
the
not
thing.
succeed.
Here's the thing. Yeah. That is the only version. From what I understand, there is no German version. Like,
oh, wait a minute. Did they do all the audio in ADR? Because
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, that explains a lot, because I'm like, this is clearly not on set.
Yeah, well, no, they had clearly done English performance, so they'd done that, and in some scenes you can tell that they absolutely are recording what's on set. But then most of it, I'd say almost like probably 60 to 70% is absolutely ADR'd. And it works in some cases and it doesn't work in others. Every single time the little kid shows up, I'm sorry, the ADR doesn't work. You know?
Well, the little kid doesn't work, and I hope that this kid is not like their kid.
I think it actually is their kid.
Okay. That explains it, because that kid's not an actor. God bless his little adorable heart. He was a cute kid.
He's a cute kid, but it'd be like if I put my kids in a movie. I know that would be like the same thing.
He's clearly looking for his cues to say the next line that his parents like desperately made him memorize.
Probably.
But he has no idea why he's saying it, you know?
Yeah.
There's a reason that like usually like a movie like E.T. like goes through 300 kid actors, because kids aren't good at acting. But if you go through 300 kids, you find that one diamond in the rough where you're like, here's our Elliot, you know? So.
And then you get a Drew Barrymore that has a bunch of like substance abuse problems for about, 20 years.
Hey, look, so she was just a little drunk and high on cocaine in E.T. We all know she had the cocaine fingernail in E.T.
She wasn't drunk and high in E.T. That was Firestarter.
Firestarter, yeah. Yeah, that's when she got all fucked up.
Yeah. And then she got clean. She's good now. Like she's good. But no, that is something to point out, is that English is not the primary language of the actors and crew involved in this, and you can tell. And I know I'm guessing that was probably done mainly for the fact that, and this is just a shitty thing that is within this industry, but English language films get more distribution and more opportunities.
The two biggest markets, America and China. You got to pander to one.
But like, I know I've seen movies on Netflix, recently, and it will be completely dubbed over with different actors and their voices. I mean, Under Control, a movie that our friends at Narrative Films worked on. That is English dubbed.
You mean me?
Yeah. I mean you.
That was before my time, but yeah. Yeah. And Brian, something I wanted to ask you, as somebody who, just watched this movie out of nowhere like I did, is this supposed to take place in the United States?
I think it is.
Right, because of the Confederate flag, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was like, either they don't know the significance of that flag, or they're trying to say this is America.
Well, I think here's the funny thing is the Confederate flag is there because the two individuals that Martha encounters first say that they're from like 1860 something. Like they literally say the year is 1860 something.
1885.
Yeah.
It's a dock.
So that's part of it, and that's why that's there. Now, I also think that it's America because during the interrogation scene, the detective literally says, "Martha, you are, you're a nice American woman." So, like right there, you can tell that it's clearly trying to be a representation of, the U.S.
Yeah,
but that's a criticism I would say is I don't think you necessarily need to do that. I think this movie, if it played to what it actually is, and played to the fact that it is filmed in Germany, with German actors, that it will probably be a lot more smoother of delivery if it was actually done in the native language and done with subtitles.
I agree.
Again, I understand that probably the reason why English was chosen, and why there was such a prevalence of trying to make sure that the dubbing was done and that it was done in specifically English, is because of the strict fact that unfortunately, the entertainment industry really won't give play to films that were filmed in another language outside of maybe like the film festival circuit. That's the truth, unfortunately.
Well, what could have been interesting is that the idea of the director, who was also the star, like maybe she is German, but then when she's like brought into this Pink Rabbit world, like she's sent into the United States. So like, not only is she in a different time, she's in a different continent, something like that.
Yeah, it's possible. But I think that was something that I know. Well, one, I can't even imagine trying, if it's not your native language, and then trying to deliver lines in that language, and then trying to edit and re-record in that language, and trying to make it all flow. Though, again, that's a lot of work. And I know why they did it, but I do think that it did hamstring a couple things. And it mainly, like, if I had to pick one thing that was like, this is the thing that I would say, please work on in the next film, is pacing.
Oh dear God, yes, yeah. It's literally 100%.
It's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure if we broke this movie down scene by scene, minute by minute, I could say like, oh, you might want to adjust that, you might want to twerk that, like, but that would be something that I would do with the director in an editing room. But yeah, the biggest thing is that this movie, it should be half of its runtime. Like usually I say cut 15 minutes off. This movie could cut half of its runtime off.
It's at about an hour 45. Like I looked at the runtime, it's an hour 45.
Here's the biggest problem with it. I watched it the other day in full, nonstop, and then earlier today I was just re-reviewing it, and I was jumping ahead, and I was skipping like 6 or 7 minutes at a time, and I wasn't missing anything. Now, I mean, maybe a couple of the subtle like nuances or smaller things, but I'm like, if I can just jump ahead 6 or 7 minutes and I'm not missing anything, then that's maybe material you don't need.
I have a theory on why this is the case. I have a theory. So when I was an undergrad, and I went to undergrad at Robert Morris University, I had the pleasure of meeting 2 German exchange students who were coming specifically to my program to study film and video. And
Hans and Franz.
No, not Hans and Franz.
They were there to pump you up.
No. But they're really great, and they love the fact they were coming to Pittsburgh to see where like zombies were birthed from. Like they were big Night of the Living Dead fans, and they specifically wanted to work in documentary. And I remember when I watched their actual documentary, it was actually on, I believe it was on, oh shit.
I love that streaming service.
No. But they had done it specifically on like the Rust Belt areas of PA. You know what I mean? Like they'd done it on kind of like the economic downturn in those areas. And this was I think they actually filmed John Fetterman before, when he was mayor of Braddock and all that. So I noticed that their film that they had worked on was especially slow paced. And I'm guessing it probably is a cultural thing. I think that American cinema might just be, we're naturally fast. Our editing style is naturally fast. Because like the same sort of thing with like this one. There were moments I'm watching my friend's documentary and I'm just going, this is so fucking slow. And like they didn't see it that way. You know what I mean? So that could be a reason why the pacing of this is so slow compared to what we're used to. Now I can understand that, but as you said, there's a lot of dialogue in this film that I'm not sure if all of it needs to be there. And I'm not sure if it has to be edited in a way where each line is said and then cut to the next line. Like in editing, typically what you'll see to kind of keep the flow of a conversation going really well is the use of L and J cuts, which are in essence just bleeding over either the dialogue of one person talking over to the next shot, or having the shot of someone hanging a bit longer as the dialogue from the next person comes in. And what this in essence does is speed up conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. Because naturally, like when we're talking, John, we're not going to stop saying something and then wait for the next person. That's not how it works. You're going to talk over one another. And in a film, you might want to actually have that person's reaction to whatever they're saying occur as they're saying it. So that's the one thing that I noticed, was that the pacing of this was slow, to a point where, certain scenes that normally a scene should maybe last for, that's Siri going off on my watch. But maybe a scene would last for maybe, I don't know, 3 minutes. That would be kind of a conversation scene, a 3-minute long scene, or maybe even 5. But like the scene in which Martha is being interrogated by the detective, it's 7, 8, even 9 minutes long. And it just feels way too long for something that really we're not getting a whole lot of new information out of. It would be different if like there was a buildup of tension within that scene. And there really doesn't seem to be a buildup of tension in that scene. In other scenes in this, there absolutely is. The scenes in that are supposedly in 1860 or whatever, especially once Martha is getting kind of tortured, there's clearly tension built up, and you do see the edit kind of start to get a little bit faster. But it's still not to the level that I would say that we're used to in America.
Yeah, I would say to this filmmaker, just from one filmmaker to another, with all due respect, like, look at Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. Like, look at any movie, like his snap base. And I'm not, it's not a commentary on whether his type of dialogue is realistic or not, but I'm just saying, look at the cuts, look at how snappy that back and forth is, in any of his stuff. West Wing, the Facebook movie, what the fuck is it called?
The Facebook movie.
I can't remember what it's called.
Social Network.
Social Network, yeah. Or the Steve Jobs movie he did. Like, just look at the back and forth of the dialogue on that.
Or even like Edgar Wright's material. Like if you look at Edgar Wright, his conversations are snappy. They're very stylistic. And like, I would say that would probably fit more in line with what Zetkin is trying to create here, in that, her films are more stylized and more dealing with otherworldly things, and how do you show that through the edit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you're going to use a lot of dialogue, you have to compensate for that some way. Like, you need to have the camera constantly moving. You need to have dolly shots or stylistic zoom ins, or or pull-ins or push-ins. Like, you need to do something to make this, more dynamic. If we're getting is exposition, the camera needs to like play the role of party clown, so to speak. Like, keep the kids entertained, like do something with it. Instead of just like, something locked down.
I mean, that's the thing, is that these conversation scenes, and there are a good bit of them where it's like back and forth. I think they absolutely need the inclusion of visuals to go along with them, and it could be something as like just inserts of what is actually what these characters are doing. And those sorts of things can give you insight into what the character's personality is without actually saying it. How does one character react visually to what circumstances they're in? It doesn't have to be exposition. It doesn't have to be said.
Well, just in terms of pacing as well, and I don't think I'm giving anything away because this is in the first act of the movie, and it doesn't affect the overall narrative. But after our main character gets in a car accident and gets sucked into the Pink Rabbit universe, she's being held captive by people in, as we mentioned, in the 1800s and the 19th century. And it's her waking up, and she has 3 pet store mice on her, 3 adorable pet store mice on her.
Yeah.
But by the way, if you can't afford rats, don't give me any pet store mice. Feeder mice.
I didn't know that was something that you were really like, you better get the rats right.
I look, for somebody who worked in a pet store, I'm like, those are feeder mice. They're adorable, or pets. They're like little adorable white feeder mice, and like they just dropped them on her, and they're all like, "What do we do now?"
You couldn't spray paint them brown.
Well, I mean, get rats. You can use a rat. I'm sure there's a rat trainer you can talk to. But anyways, never.
You only got $4,000, John. Come on. It's either we're eating lunch for that day or we're paying for rats.
But like her waking up in that and trying to escape, or you can eat the rats when you're sorry.
That's good eating there.
From her waking up and her trying to escape and her screaming and her seeing the rats, like all of that, literally all of that could be cut, and it could just be cut to her being dragged out by like the helpless cannibals.
Yeah.
There's the thing, like all of that, like the maybe 7 to 10 minutes that we spent of her waking up, not knowing where she is with the fake rats on her, like trying to get out of her cell, like just cut literally all of that. It doesn't serve any narrative purpose.
Here's the thing, and I'm glad that Zetkin told me that she was also the editor, because it does give a little bit of insight into this, and I know that I personally, I typically edit my own stuff, because it's like post-production is my favorite part of the filmmaking process. But here's the thing. If you spend a lot of time and you spend a lot of money and you really are, married to certain shots and certain sequences, it can be extremely difficult to take yourself out of that arena and out of the director, and that you were on set and all that stuff, and that you were in the film. And it can be very difficult to take yourself out of that and seriously ask yourself the question, does this work for the scene or not?
Yeah.
And and here's the thing. I'll tell Zetkin this. It is difficult. It is not easy to do that. You spend a lot of time working on that scene. You spend a lot of time setting that shot up. You've got lights here. You've spent a lot of time and energy, and maybe you even have, actors that you've brought in, and you're just like, wow, these actors were great. This performance is great, or they did an okay job, but I asked them as a favor, so I don't want to lose them because maybe they're a friend or whatever. The point is, you have to be able to take a step back, look at your timeline, and go, does this work or does it not? That's a skill that no film school will teach you. Ever. They won't ever do it. But it's something that you, as an editor and as a director, need to know. You need to separate yourself from it. If you can't do it, then you should hire another editor. Like, you should hire someone to do it who was involved with it, who can look at it in those in that mind space.
Yeah. If I was teaching an editing course, I would insist that every one of my students on day one watch the movie Seven, but then watch the behind the scenes of the making of all of I can't remember Kevin Spacey's crazy character, like the making
John
of all
Doe.
John Doe, of all of his journals.
Yeah.
Because it boggles my mind about how the person that created these things, they spent hours upon hours, days upon weeks creating all these journals for maybe 13 seconds of in the film, and that we don't even really see them. I think there's maybe one close-up of the journal. Wow, Morgan Freeman's rating them, and and we only see one journal, and the guy created like 16 of them. It's like, unfortunately, this is the living proof of having to kill your darlings. Like, this person worked themselves to the bone to create this insanity nightmare collection of journals, and you see them for like 10 fucking seconds. So like, sometimes,
or even take like take the X-Men Days of Future Past. You know, the trailers for that had Rogue in it, and then you go to watch the movie, and Rogue is completely taken out. You know,
90% of it, yeah.
She's
kind of like,
no, she's gone. She's not in the movie. They took her out completely.
Sorry, I'm thinking of The Last Stand. Yeah, she's completely out of it.
They took her character completely out of the film. They used her for the trailer, and people were like, "What the fuck happened to Rogue?" And creepy Bryan Singer said, "Well, it just." I mean, the man's fucking creep. But he said, he's like, "Listen, it didn't work for the movie. It didn't work. It was a scene in which he literally said, like, I needed to have Charles Xavier and Magneto do something because they didn't have anything to do. And so he had them rescue Rogue. And that was the scene. And sure enough, him talking about it in press clippings and things like that ended up getting it turned into the Rogue cut, which you can find. But it for the theatrical cut, it didn't make sense for the movie. It disrupted the flow. And that's really what editing teaches you, is to how to construct a story that has a narrative flow that the audience can follow and that keeps them moving from one scene to the next. And while I do love this movie, I do think that it's very commendable, especially for, doing everything yourself. The pacing issue and the language is something that I think could be improved upon to really make this shine as well as it can.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Brian, in terms of like handing it off to somebody else. Like, if I was given the timeline of this movie, when for people who aren't in the movie business, I mean, like, and I'm not talking about a complete version of the film where it's just one continuous clip and one continuous audio, but like the actual edited timeline of all the clips and everything. So like, it's a puzzle that I can change. Like, I feel that like I would be like, well, I'm not going to talk to the director. I'm just going to make my own cut now.
Yeah.
And, and hopefully they would like that. Like, one of the funniest things is The Simpsons and The Office. If you're fans of those shows, if you're not, then this is not going to speak to you. I love watching the deleted scenes from both of those shows. Yeah. Like, on the DVD, on the DVDs.
On the DVDs?
Because I'm old. And I'm like, dude, these are some of the funniest lines, and they kept them on the cutting room floor. I can't believe it. But like, that is a textbook definition of having sometimes to kill your darlings. Like, and sometimes the best stuff is left on the cutting room floor. Like the episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns takes Bart as his heir. The whole robotic Richard Simmons thing is not in the episode, and it's one of the funniest goddamn things I've ever seen in my life. But sometimes you have to make those sacrifices.
Yeah. It's tough though, and that's, as I'm saying, it's a difficult thing to do. But if I had one thing to say, it's like, either feel comfortable in the sense that you're creating a story, and that the most important thing is communicating that story in a way that makes sense to the audience, or hire another editor, hire someone to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you know that you're too attached to these scenes, and that, you have a tendency to kind of be unwilling to chop things out, then absolutely hire somebody else. They will do it, and they will at least, take your vision and put it through that sieve of trying to tell a story in a way that the pacing and everything matches up, and that you really are removing things that are kind of extraneous. Now, some things that I did like in this, I mentioned the cinematography. But again, for the world that we're given, you have some good locations, you have some good special effects. And I like the fact that it blended animation at times in with live action, which is very ballsy.
So for a $4,000 budget, the fact that they had animation in there, I'm assuming that the director and her spouse like knew how to animate, because that's not something you could just cheaply pawn off.
No, you can't. So, yeah, I mean the visual effects in this are pretty decent. They're not I wouldn't say they're like, crazy Hollywood level, but you can tell that they knew what they were doing. And that's good. That's part of it. That's part of the job, is to know what you're doing. And as I said, like, I followed what was happening in it, and I knew what was happening. I could see there was subtext in it. The one thing I did have an issue with, aside from that, in terms of performances, the Pink Rabbit himself, I could not understand what he was saying.
Yeah, that's an accent thing.
Yeah.
That's an accent thing.
I found that, like, everyone else who was speaking English, I understood what they were saying, even with the accent. But the Pink Rabbit's accent was extremely thick, and it was difficult to understand exactly what he was saying sometimes. It wasn't every time he was on screen, but it was just a couple of times. I'm like, what did he actually say?
You can't say my speaking English. You just need to open your voice, mate.
That's Cockney accent. That's not German, dude. Why do you think everyone in Germany is like high pitched? What? Why? You think everyone is Gunther from The Simpsons?
Oh yes, this is so cool. Can I have another sloppy, Jimbo?
Oh God, horrible. I would like this filmmaker to give us additional films. I don't want her to be like, yeah, fuck these guys.
Oh yeah, I hope my flippancy on Germany. I spoke the language at the beginning. All right,
you did. I can't speak any of it. My wife can a little bit. Lauren can. She said she wants to travel to Germany and be able to speak a little bit of the language. I'm like, I'll go to Spain and speak my little bit of Spanish, and then be looked at as like the white gringos just sitting there trying to.
You'd be like Charlton Heston. You could be the American Spaniard.
Yeah, but yeah, no. All in all, I really did enjoy this film, and despite the issues. As I said, my biggest piece of advice, and I mean, we've reviewed films that were far worse, like really bad.
There were some times that I felt bad about telling my truth.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess for me, I would love to see what Zetkin's next film is. And if she does take into account some of this advice, I hope so. Because I think if she's able to make do and make a film like this that does get distribution, which is nothing to scoff at, okay? And it's not like some fly-by-night. It's Gravitas Ventures. It's actually a pretty big one. That does get distribution, that is made on a shoestring. What would happen if she had a bigger budget and applied some editing in a way that fixed the pacing issue, and maybe even just decided to do a movie in German and put subtitles in.
Well, as you mentioned, it's too late now because this movie is
right. It's too late now.
No, but not that like too late. I mean, hell, the movie's been picked up, like too late, my ass. But but yeah, this movie should be cut down to like 85 minutes.
I would say I'd say 85 is probably good. I think 85 to maybe even like 75. I think would be fine. I think 75 is still like, it's still feature. No one's the feature police aren't gonna come around and say, well, you're not really a feature movie because you're not 80 minutes. It's like,
With streaming now, like, what is the future?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares anymore? But yeah, so I guess in closing, final thoughts, John, on Pink Rabbit?
I am, my hat's off to them. They made something. They did it on a shoestring budget with very limited people. I had my issues with the film, as I do with any film, whether it's this or, a $200 million Marvel movie.
Right.
But yeah, as you mentioned, we review a lot of like independent movies, and sometimes it's like, oh shit, how do I pretend to say something nice? Like,
well, here's the thing, we never pretend we saying anything nice.
Yeah,
like that's
just like try to find the bright side of it.
We try to find the bright side.
Yeah.
Yes.
This I don't have any issue with. I do have my issues with the film, but it is competent. It is shot beautifully, not perfectly, but very well. Like I have a couple audio issues, but my major issue is just with the pacing of the movie. Yeah. That was my only big problem with it. Yeah. And so I think that they succeeded. I think that, God bless them for making independent cinema and making it so cheap and getting something original, getting it out there. Yeah.
Like that's my big thing about it. That's my final thought is that, hey, this isn't a superhero fucking movie. It's not. It's not a remake. It's not a sequel. It's not based off of another property.
It's not a soft sequel, Boot?
No, it's not. But it's actually an original idea that does have a beginning, middle, and end. It's unique. I'm in the same boat as you. I do think that there's some issues with performance, but a lot of that I really got to say, I think that's just the language. I really think the language is part of the reason. Zetkin performing as Martha, she actually did a pretty decent job. Like the scenes where you really are trying to get emotion out of that character, she's not like, faking it. You can see that in her eyes. And that is acting. But I really do think that and she did mention that English was an issue that they did come up against. But I really think that was something that did kind of hold you back on performances with everybody else. And then as we kind of really spent the bulk of the episode talking about, if there's one thing that we got to say, hey, this will improve your movie tremendously, is pacing and knowing when to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
But either way, check out Pink Rabbit for yourself. It is a wild ride in the film, and there's a lot to love about this movie. And especially if you really want to support independent filmmakers, check this out. It's streaming basically everywhere. I believe when it releases, it's going to go on VOD as well as cable in US and Canada, and we'll put links to it in the show notes here. But I gotta say thank you to Zetkin for sending us this film. We loved watching it and gave us hope for indie filmmakers that they can create something that's really unique and imaginative, because I really felt that with this movie.
Amen.
Amen. Well, with that said, John, where can they find you at on the internets?
All the usuals, and then especially with my last name, I'm not hard to find.
No, you're not.
And I know that I have been cock teasing everybody.
You really have been cock teasing
for the last like 2.5 months. I need you all to bear with me.
You've been not even slipping the tip in, man. Like
I've been doing like freelance work. I've been doing.
You've been putting
work.
Just like one ball hair.
Yeah,
and not even slipping the tip in. Just one ball hair.
And I became a professor recently. So
Professor Woolscroft. Yes.
Yeah. No, Dr. Woolscroft.
Joining the ranks.
Yeah. But the Wonka video, I've been working on it daily. It is coming. I'm sorry. It is coming, and it will be finished soon.
It's coming as you slip the tip in.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, two pump edit. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's a 2-pump edit.
Uh,
Oh God.
but yeah, it is coming out fucking finally. I had a lot of time to like get my life straight, like not in a bad way, but just like
Right.
but things have been put on hold, and I need to like really focus on my spooky season stuff because I really want to get that out, and I have a couple of possibly great guests lined up. So yeah, the finally the thing I've been teasing for the last like 8 weeks of the show, the Wonka episode. Don't expect it to blow every other episode out of the water just because it's taken this long. It's because I've had a lot of things get in my way. It's just going to be like every other episode of the show, so I don't want to build expectation.
It's cool.
But yeah, so that'll be coming out soon. It's
So we can
about
look
75
forward to it in 2023, right?
Yeah. No, 2024. Don't get exaggerated.
Yeah. You know, after Erie Horror Fest and all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's
you
when
know,
it'll come
and the second coming of Jesus and everything. You know, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. We're gonna get through like at least like 4 waves of coronavirus before.
Yeah.
4 more waves. Cool. Well, you can find me at Brian Coddington. I also run the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. If you also have a question, or if you have a favorite movie, or maybe you are the Pink Rabbit and you did not like us, or at least John, making fun of your accent. Again, very sorry. But you can find him and contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Be sure to follow or subscribe to us wherever you listen to audio, and we will see you next time.
Herr Coddington has der grossest Pimmel in der Welt.
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I said Mr. Coddington has the biggest penis in the world.
Well.
Epicast.